She just took a nap on the bus, and her phone accidentally fell beside the seat. However, it was this small oversight that became the beginning of her nightmare. The next day, her best friend came to look for Nami. After searching for a while, she couldn't find her. Finally, she saw her on the balcony. It turns out that Nami drank too much last night. I spent the night on the balcony. At this time, Nami found that her phone was missing, and her best friend quickly took out her phone and called Nami's number. Unexpectedly, the guy who found the phone used an app to change the phone to a girl and answer the phone. Nami arranged with the man to meet at the coffee shop owned by her father to pick up the phone. At the appointed time, Nami arrived at the coffee shop early, but the man was nowhere to be seen after waiting for a long time, and she was wondering. Woolen cloth. The man called and said that the phone screen was accidentally broken and had been sent to a repair shop for repair, and asked Nami to go directly to the store to pick up the phone. Nami went to the repair shop according to the address given by the man. As soon as I entered the store, I saw my phone on the table. At this time, the clerk came out from the inner room. It was the handsome guy who picked up the phone. He didn't say a word. Handed over a maintenance request form and asked Nami to fill it out. Nami hesitated for a moment when she saw that she had to write a password, but then she thought, it was just a phone. There shouldn't be any problem, so I wrote down the power-on password without thinking. After the man unlocked the phone, he implanted virus software in the phone and also took Nami's phone and another phone simultaneously. From then on, Nami's phone was like a surveillance camera, her every move on the phone. The man could see clearly where she lived, where she worked, what the door password was, and even her fingerprint information was recorded by the man. The man seized the opportunity and used the information he had to have a chance encounter with Nami in her father's coffee shop. When the two talked, Nami was surprised. I discovered that this man's interests and hobbies were exactly the same as mine. The man spoke so gently and considerately, which made Nami feel so happy and her affection for her increased, but Nami's father watching from the side. I always feel that this man is indescribably weird. It seemed as if he was deliberately trying to please his daughter. When Nami returned home, her father couldn't help but remind her, I don't think that man is reliable. You should stay away from him in the future. Nami was immersed in the joy of meeting the man. When she heard what her father said, she was immediately unhappy. The father and daughter talked back and forth. It was a bit unpleasant. All of this was seen by the man hiding in the dark, but the man's evil intentions were not limited to this. His conspiracy was like a big net, which was slowly trapping Nami in it. At night, Nami was chatting with her bestie. The man controlled Nami's phone and sent her a link. Nami's father is usually a very cautious person. When seeing an unfamiliar link, the first reaction is that it might contain a virus. But then another message popped up on the phone, which looked like an apology message from Nami. The father felt sorry for his daughter, thinking that maybe his daughter had something urgent to deal with, so he opened the link. Not long after, a strange box was delivered to the door of the house. The father was puzzled and carefully opened the door to check. Unexpectedly, the boy quietly popped up. At the same time, the police found a moldy female corpse in the wilderness. After a careful investigation, they found that the situation was far more serious than they had imagined. 7 more bodies were subsequently dug up nearby. The deaths of these female corpses were so tragic, it was obvious that they were brutally murdered. The sheriff in charge of the case led his men to search for clues everywhere. Unexpectedly, I found a strange grapefruit tree. There was a wooden sign hanging on the tree. On it were written the 3 words, Yu Juinro. The police chief almost lost his balance when he saw the name. This was none other than Juinro, his son who had run away from home 7 years ago. Nami was sleeping soundly, but her phone suddenly started sending her messages non-stop. The next day, Nami woke up and suddenly found that her boss had called her 99 times. She was so scared that she rushed to the company in a hurry. When Nami opened it, she was stunned. It turned out that last night her social media account insulted the boss and exposed the company's product quality problems in the company group. When she arrived at the company, before she could even open her mouth to explain, the boss angrily pointed at her nose and started swearing at her. Nami hurriedly explained that her phone had been hacked, but her boss simply waved his hand and kicked her out of the company. Nami walked out of the company in a daze. She couldn't understand why she just slept for a while. How did it become like this? At this time, my best friend came over. Seeing Nami's distraught look, her best friend rushed to comfort her. The two then went to the police station to report the case, but the police asked her to produce evidence that her phone had been hacked. They had no choice but to leave the police station. Nami suddenly remembered the guy who had repaired her phone before, and thought that maybe he could help, but she had no idea that this guy was the culprit who had messed up her life. Nami asked the guy to meet at a coffee shop. The man pretended to pick up Nami's phone, saying that the phone was indeed infected with virus software. But the software can only locate and monitor. There is no other way. The remote control must be someone around who stole the phone and sent the message. Nami heard it. I got so excited that I immediately started to suspect my best friend. Because her best friend happened to stay overnight at her house last night, and she was the only one who had access to the phone, Nami couldn't help but question her best friend. When the best friend heard that her best friend actually doubted her, she felt like she was slapped in the face. She was angry and aggrieved, and could not accept it at all. She turned around and left in anger. In this way, a pair of good girlfriends completely broke up because of the man's instigation. The man showed a smug smile on his face when he saw this. At this time, Nami felt more and more that something was wrong, so she decided to go to the repair shop again to see if she could find any clues. When she rushed to the repair shop, she found that the shop had been surrounded by police and was in a mess. The walls were covered with yellow paper. It turned out that after some investigation, the sheriff determined that the murderer was most likely his son and Sheriff Juinro. Following the clues, they found the man's address and discovered a lot of evidence related to the victim in the house. But just as he was recording the evidence with his mobile phone, the murderer deliberately led him out of the room. When he returned to the house, the evidence had been completely destroyed and his son was nowhere to be found. The sheriff checked again carefully and felt that there might be more than 8 victims. At this time, Nami walked in, and the sheriff instantly realized that Nami might be the murderer's next target, but Nami was still in the dark, thinking that this man was just an ordinary peeping Tom. Little did she know that she was about to face a serial killer who had brutally murdered 8 women. He naively suggested to the sheriff that he invite the man to his home and then let the police catch him in the trap. After discussing with his colleagues, the police chief decided to follow Nami's plan. The man was fooled and happily got a new haircut. At the appointed time, the man swaggered to Nami's door. When the chief inspector saw the murderer appear, he rushed forward with his colleagues. However, when the man turned around, he found that this man was not the same person as Chief Inspector Juinro. He and his colleagues were extremely embarrassed and asked a few simple questions before letting the man go. In order to ensure Nami's safety, the sheriff suggested that he go to his father. Hide in the villa. He also gave her his business card, asking her to let him know she was safe when she arrived. When Nami entered the house, she saw that the light in her father's room was off. She thought that her father had gone to bed. Nami wanted to call the sheriff to let him know she was safe, but as soon as she made the call, the ringing sound came from upstairs. Nami was so frightened that she was a shudder. Nami was so scared that she turned and ran away, quickly closed the door and took out her cell phone to get it. Please also like and subscribe. As soon as he pressed the emergency number, the numbers on the phone screen were automatically deleted. Then the phone started taking pictures automatically and crazily, and Nami realized that the phone had also been tampered with by the pervert. Just then, she heard her father's voice coming from downstairs. Nami followed the voice to the living room. There was a tape recorder on the table, but her and her father's voices did not come from there. Nami's heart skipped a beat, and she saw a mobile phone stretched out from behind the sofa. Then the perverted man stood up slowly with a creepy smile on his face. It was as if she had everything under control. Only then did Nami completely understand that the person in front of her was. This is a complete sociopath. Then the man said he was going to the bathroom. Nami thought, here comes her chance. As soon as the man entered the bathroom, she quickly picked up the weapon next to her and prepared to launch a surprise attack. But after waiting for a long time, the man still didn't come out. There were strange noises coming from inside. Nami looked through the crack in the door. She saw the father was tied up in the bathtub, and the man had a knife in his hand, against his neck. The man asked Nami to tie him up, and for the sake of his father's safety, he had no choice but to obey. But the man did not give up and actually turned on the faucet to drown his father. Nami cried heartbreakingly, begging the man to let her father go. The man looked at Nami's desperate expression. As if he had received great satisfaction, he suddenly turned off the tap. Then the man threw Nami into the bathtub as well. He picked up his phone, took a picture of Nami's desperate expression and set it as his phone screensaver, then picked up the business card and took a look at it, his face instantly turning pale. It turns out that the business card said no text messages, only phone calls. The man then realized that he had been tricked by Nami. The message he had just sent had exposed his location. The man looked through the window and saw that the police had arrived. He quietly picked up his weapon and prepared to launch a sneak attack, but before he could do anything, a gun was put to his head. It turned out that the sheriff received a call from a colleague. The bodies of his son and Juinro were found in the reservoir. The police chief suddenly realized what had happened. It turned out that he had been misled by the murderer. His son had been killed by this pervert 7 years ago. The murderer stole his son's information and committed crimes everywhere, which made him mistakenly believe that his son was the murderer. Upon learning the truth about his son's murder, the sheriff was filled with grief and anger. He raised his gun and wanted to avenge his son and other victims. But he is a policeman after all. Nami looked at the man's arrogant face, and the anger in her heart could no longer be suppressed. She secretly picked up the gun on the ground and pulled the trigger without hesitation. With a gunshot, the pervert finally got the punishment he deserved. At this point, the crisis was finally resolved. The title of the film is just Lost Phone. If you like it, you can go and watch the original film. See you next time.